Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Don't know when you're listening to this and watching it. So anyway, welcome to a new episode of the Don't Be Afraid podcast. I always struggle with this because you didn't come and hear my voice, and I end up with a 5-minute introduction that you can probably skip through. But the Don't Be Afraid podcast was meant to be about technology, but it's also meant to be about interesting conversations. And so when I meet somebody interesting or have an interesting conversation with somebody, it trumps tech. And because I'm the boss, I get a chance to overrule everybody and go, okay, we should do this. Today's conversation is not about tech. Sorry, let me even step back a bit. Any of you guys who are watching me who can see the video will see me in a jacket. Trust me, it's not that I'm trying to groom myself and make myself look any better. Not possible. I'm sure some of you are saying, but it's because Lagos has dealt with me this morning. Wore a white shirt in the car and came out only to find out that the seatbelt had stained the shirt. And so the producer, the director has insisted that I wear the jacket. He thinks that my face is enough punishment for you to look at without having to also look at my disheveled state. So please, it's not me trying to look fancy. It's just trying to cover up. And from time to time, you will see me sweating. Again, it's Lagos dealing with us. And he said I should say dollar every 5 minutes. So if you hear me with something, say dollar. All right, you guys should shake with it. You know why? It's just to make sure you're all awake and listening. So you see, that's already the 5-minute introduction, and I haven't started. But I had a really interesting conversation with somebody. And it's amazing how, look, we all do this. You walk past someone, you go, "Oh, hi, how are you doing?" And everybody just go, "Fine, fine, fine." And it's a knee jerk. It's a reflex. You don't really ask. You don't really mean. You're not really interested. You just ask because that's what you do and what's like polite society does. And it was amazing how I'd met this person, Lord knows how many times. And, we do the, "Oh, how are you? Fine, thanks. Yeah, how are you?" Boom, boom. And this was just after Christmas, and just a random question sort of took us into the next level, and it was really interesting. And on that back of that, I wanted to get her in here, and we've had so many conversations beyond after that I hope I think we'll still have enough to talk about on this. But it all started on the question of how was your holidays, and from that we end up with her telling me about her son and the fact that he has autism. And it was really I find that when that happens, that triggers over all so many different questions in my head. And as we got talking about it, I said, look, I'd really like to get you on this podcast because I'm not a person, I don't believe in all this sort of like Valentine's Day stuff because I feel, yes, it's because I'm cheap, but my girlfriend doesn't know that. The excuse I give her is that I think that love and things like that are stuff that you celebrate all the time. So this is not, I didn't want to wait for the autism week, the autism month, or whatever it is. So I'm not knocking the guys who do that. But in speaking to her, I realized that this is something that she lives with every single day. And that the learnings in the conversation are things that I think could be interesting. Well, I find interesting. I think could be useful for other people. So I wanted just to get her in and stuff. So please forgive the long introduction, and I haven't even mentioned her name. But I'm really thrilled and ever so thankful to this lady for agreeing to have this conversation, because I always believe I don't share. I love conversations, but I'm an introvert. And I think that it's such a vulnerable thing when you put yourself out there, and social media, you people are nasty. I mean, on good days, yeah, you're great, but then there's the possibility that in putting out that kind of information, there's so many, not risks, you just expose yourself. So I'm always thankful for anybody who sits here with me and is willing to have this conversation. So I would thank you. I'm really thrilled to be joined by Mrs. Aishatu Oshisonya. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah.
Yes, great. Okay. Now it's Oshisonya. I'm Yoruba, so I should be able to get that out. But my family will know that just even to pronounce my name is a success, let alone getting somebody else's right. But thank you, Aisha. I've been thinking about how do I start this, because of all the conversations we've had. But let me start again by asking you how this all started. So, how was your holidays?
Stressful. It was fine, but it was stressful.
Why? What happened? What happened? What did you guys get up to? What did you do? So I'm saying, sorry, you guys, if you're watching the video, you can't see it. Aisha's Muslim, so that's why I've done not the how was Christmas, but how were the holidays. So yeah.
So we traveled. We went to Ekpe for the Christmas holidays, and it was fun. I've not gone to Ekpe before to have a good time. So I spent the holiday with my husband's family at Ekpe, and my kids had fun. My baby had fun. He's 2 years old, but his big brother is 5 years old now. I'm not sure that he understood that he was on holiday, or that he knew that he was not in the same place, but he was just himself. He wasn't having fun. He wasn't causing trouble. He was just there,
Why? Explain, because I've given it away a bit because look, yeah, he has autism.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he doesn't understand a lot of things, right? He knows that he's not at home. He knew at the time that he wasn't in his house, but when a child would miss their father, I was there. He wasn't missing his dad. He didn't realize that his dad wasn't around much. And even on the phone, when his baby brother would be all, oh, daddy, 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 when his dad calls, he would just walk away because it's just a regular day for him. It wasn't part of his routine, but it did not disturb his routine also, because he doesn't just have autism, he also has ADHD, and they don't like routines. So this was an adventure for him, and he had no care in the world.
What is ADHD?
ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
In English, what does that mean?
It means when someone's attention span is very little and they are very hyper.
Okay.
And in this case, they don't like routine. Unlike children who have autism, that if you were to give them a routine regularly, you wake up at this time, you brush your teeth, you bathe, you eat, you dress up, you do this and that. If you were to spell it out, A, B, C, D to Z, for a child that has autism, they will stick to that routine. And if you change it, it could affect them. In some cases, it will not. In some cases, it will not affect them too much, because you are either on the low spectrum of autism or on the high spectrum, or at the middle of it. So if you're at the low spectrum of autism, you always need help. They are the children that we will see a lot of the time, and people will call them imbecile.
Sorry, because it's really weird. Sorry to interrupt you. It's really weird. My perception was low spectrum meant that they were more functioning.
No.
So high spectrum means that they're okay. I've always thought, and sorry, as I said,
I understand.
So people, when someone talks about somebody with autism that is on low spectrum, it's somebody who is less functioning.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
People that are on the high spectrum, there are people that have conditions like Asperger disorder. Okay. If you've ever seen The Good Doctor.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
He's autistic, but we wouldn't say he's autistic. We'd say he has Asperger disorder because he's very high functioning.
Okay.
And then people who are in the middle, they need help, but not so much.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna break because let me step you, because part of this is for me and everybody who's listening to understand a bit more. Let's sort of take a step back. We all hear autism. We hear that.
Yeah.
Can you explain it to us? What is it?
Okay, so autism is a neurological disorder. It's in the brain. It is when certain parts of the brain it's not like it's not fully developed. It's just not fully functional. Their
Okay.
brain is wired differently.
Okay.
So people think straightforward sometimes. If you tell a neurotypical person, that is someone who is considered to be normal,
Okay.
if you told them that, oh, my grandfather kicked the bucket, they would understand. They would understand that the person died. Someone who has autism, their brain is not wired to understand sarcasm. So everything you tell them is as it is.
Okay.
Actually, people who have autism are some of the easiest people to work with because everything they see is straight,
Okay. Okay.
right?
Already.
Now, someone that has ADHD, on the other hand, his brain is like this. So he could start a task. He's halfway. Oh, that spider on the wall looks interesting. Carry broom, scatter the whole house, trying to kill the spider. The mirror looks dirty. I need to clean it. They leave the broom there. They've left the other task pending.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask an ADHD person to clean the house, you come back and meet it even messier.
Okay.
If you ask an autism person to clean the house, so long as they have a routine, you will come back and find it sparkling.
Okay. So and your son has the two.
Yes.
So they are contrasting.
Yes.
They're fighting with each other.
Yes.
Okay. Alrighty. How did you find out what happened? I mean, yeah. What happened? How did it happen? Sorry. How did it happen?
I don't know how it happens, right? But I know that I knew that something was amiss because I'm the last of 5 children. I have 3 elder sisters who are married. I stayed with them. I helped raise their children, when their children were growing up.
Free babysitter.
Yes, free babysitter. So I had noticed that my son was not meeting certain milestones. I probably would have known had I paid a little more attention when he was a baby. Although I don't know that you can diagnose a baby, but I know that you can diagnose a child from 3 years old.
Okay.
But there were signs
Okay.
that people just always put them off and said, I was worried because he's my first child. So I remember that as a baby, and I don't know, a lot of people may disagree with this, but this is something that I picked up. As a baby, when we came home from the hospital, in fact, I've always had really good delivery processes. My second child was a little difficult, but my first child, I had him, and we came home the next day. And so usually when people try to point a finger and I look back, if there was a child among both of them who should have had autism, probably would have been my second child, not my first child.
But sorry, but then that makes it, because this is where I was going to go back to it, and look, the society we live in, I mean, I think even the world is still learning about autism, let alone here in Nigeria, where, God forbid, blah, 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 it's not my portion, etc.
Yeah.
What I was trying to figure out was you're told that if you are, you need to know your genotype. So if you're AS, you should marry SS or whatever it is. Is it that kind of level of it? So is it a case of, because is it that you there's something in the gene trait that then led to it, or
I don't know from the mother's side, but scientifically, it is the father's gene that carries autism and ADHD.
Okay.
Now, in my case, what I would have noticed was when I came home with my baby, he didn't know, babies would adjust to the time. Over time, they would know that during the day, they eat, they rest, they eat, they rest. At night also, they eat and they rest. But my baby was not doing that. He did not know how to stop. So once the time was 12 a.m., he would eat till 6 a.m. I was not allowed to sit. I could only stand and feed him. I could not take any break because he did not know even when he was full. And if you were to drop him, he would cry the whole entire night. So I had to feed him for hours till he was about 8 months when I started to introduce food, because I did 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding. And then 8 months, realized that even with baby food, he wasn't getting full. I didn't realize that he just didn't know when to stop. And so at 8 months, I started giving him semo. He would not eat semo. I would give him amala and draw soup. He would not eat it. I gave my son fufu at 8 months, and he was enjoying it.
So as a guy, I don't understand. I know there's all this thing about don't give them when you start to give them solids or whatever it is.
Yeah,
so
because regular food was not doing it. He just didn't know where to stop. So I had to look for something that would fill him enough that he would stop.
So with that, he actually understood.
Because it was heavy.
Okay.
Fufu is heavy.
Okay.
So because fufu is heavy, he would actually stop. He would sleep off.
Okay.
And then he would wake up and he would look for food. But in that time, I did not realize that he just didn't know when to stop. So our brain understands that I am full. I have eaten and I should stop, or else I'll probably feel sick. His brain does not understand that.
Okay. Has that carried on even through age?
Yes.
Even up to now?
Yes.
Okay.
So he's 5 years old now. I know people may say, oh, your son has an eating disorder. My son does not have an eating disorder. He just doesn't know when to stop. So you have to help him understand and build a routine, sort of, that his autism mind will understand.
Okay.
Because for an ADHD, they don't stick to routine. He might be doing something now. He might be arranging his letters now. And the next moment he gets up and he kicks it. And he wants to do something totally different. That's his ADHD acting up. His autism understood the routine of, I arrange A to Z in a very neat fashion. Because that's something I do all the time. His ADHD brain does not want to stay there. It's almost like they are fighting each other.
Yeah.
And I feel that it's a little bit painful for him. I don't know what is happening in his mind, but I have to be empathetic towards it. And I have to now understand how it affects everybody around me, including himself. So if I had a jar of sweets, I would not keep it where he would see it. Because in his mind, jars are usually empty. Jars that he sees, they are empty. So if he does not finish the sweets in the jar, he will not stop.
But then how do you then gauge between he actually is full and stuff doesn't understand, and it's just that he actually know he's still hungry? How do you, is that just with time you've come to learn and stuff that okay, listen, look, or is it based on the fact that listen, look, I know that if I eat this portion, I should be full?
He eats double the portion that I eat.
Yeah, but he's a growing boy.
Yes. So I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
So what we do is we stick to that double portion. If I'm giving myself 2 scoops of rice, I'm giving him 4 scoops of rice. And that is it. Because if you don't draw the boundary, he's a child.
Yeah.
He will not understand that he has to stop. And then I have to also remind myself that his brain does not understand when to stop. So I have to enforce it.
Okay.
Because it's helping him. He's growing up. He has to understand that.
Okay.
It might be difficult for him. But when you are bringing up a child, regardless of their peculiarities, you want to give them an upbringing that will favor them now and later on. And I know that if I do not create this, how do I phrase it? If I don't create this boundary now, that you don't eat so much, because when you are full, you feel sick. He will immediately finish eating and go to the toilet. Even as a baby, he will eat and be so full and he will poo. Okay. And you clean him up and he'll continue eating. Okay. Because he didn't know when to stop. And now that he's growing up, if he were to go to school, how would he function? If he were to go out to a party, how would he function? And I do not want him to grow up and become a bully. You've had your share, and then you go and you grab things off other people's plate, which is totally wrong. And unfortunately, people that have autism and have ADHD and have all these neurological conditions, they don't understand a lot of social cues.
Absolutely. Okay.
You have to teach them. And eating is a social cue that my son does not understand, that I have to teach him.
It was interesting. Sorry. As a guy, what do you call it? I remember speaking to a friend of mine who, when she had a baby, she said that it was really important for a child that the first time they go to school is important because they start to learn the world is not about them only. They learn that concept of sharing.
Yeah.
Because parents just give. You are the center of it, kind of stuff. And so I can get that thing of like, listen, it's socializing a child is so important because in the end, in the final analysis, you're not going to be there and all the time and those cues and stuff like that. But okay, let's go back again. So, because I'm curious how did you? I mean, you said from age you started feeding him. When did you get him diagnosed?
Nigeria, Lagos. Okay, so Lagos happened to me in this area, right? So my son was a year. He was still sleeping like he was in my stomach. So when I put him on the bed, he would fold himself and throw his head backward. So he would, like a baby would usually be when they are in the womb. And I knew that something was wrong. 2 years, he was doing things that a 6 months old child would do. 3 years, he was doing things that a 6 months old child would do. And I was worrying. So I had to start looking for ways to get him diagnosed. And we started going to hospitals. We went to Lasut and we went there the first time and I saw other children. I saw other children to look at. I thanked God for my own child that day. But the number of people waiting to see the doctor that day was so much that we got there around 6 a.m. and we left there around 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. and we could not see the doctor. And then we went back again and then they gave us another appointment. We went back again. They kept giving us appointments upon appointments upon appointments. And then the last time we went there, we got there around 8 a.m. It got to my turn around 5 p.m. And it was still the same way I had been seeing the doctor, that I was going to see the doctor again. They were going to give me another appointment again. And at the time it reached my turn, the doctor was using a torchlight. So I just gave up. I stopped going to the hospital. But at that point already, when he was around 2 years old, I noticed that when I tried to teach him, he would not respond. He was not responding to, and he could sing all his rhymes. My son could my son can actually memorize a whole cartoon, and from the moment it starts to the moment it ends, he would be saying it word by word after word until the cartoon ends. But he wasn't learning when I tried to teach him. So I looked for a teacher to come home and start to school him at home. And so this woman would come every time. And I think in the first 1 week of her coming, he learned 1 to 20 and A to Z. So then I knew that he saw me as his playmate and he saw her as an authority. So he listened to her. And then she introduced me to, I think at that point she hadn't even introduced me. When he had learned enough that she felt like he could go to school, we put him in school. And at school, they treated him as less of a human being. They just treated him so badly that after one term, I had to pull him out and call her back. So she introduced me to this organization. It's called Ease Neurocare. They're in the UK, but they have an NGO here where they give free consultation, free diagnosis, but they cannot give you a written diagnosis because they are not here. And it's going to be against their work ethics. And it could, have problems and cause problems for them over in the UK. So they diagnosed him. They did tell me that he had autism and he showed traits of ADHD. And at that time also OCD.
How old?
At that time he was 3 years old.
So you've had 3 years of stumbling in the dark
Yes.
till you get to that stage.
Yes.
When you called the teacher in, by then did you know, because you said you called the teacher, was she a specialist teacher?
Yes.
So by then you knew that he had autism or that he had something that needed a specialist?
I knew that he had autism because I read a lot. So the moment I realized that at this age, he hadn't been doing, even if all kids don't meet certain milestones at the same time, a child should not be doing what a 6-month-old child should be doing at 3 years old.
Like, I'm sorry, if you can you give me an example? The reason why I'm asking this, and I'll explain, it's that maybe it's a guy thing and or whatever it is that there's this thing about maybe first mothers or people about, listen, look, you, every single time that the child coughs, you go to hospital. And so it's that fine line of how do you really define and understand. I remember a cousin, a family friend of ours, as a kid who struggled to talk, couldn't talk properly. And I remember the pressure that was on them, but there was also the pressure of like, just let him be. We all develop at different times and different spaces and different speeds. So how, I mean, is there an example of what he's, because the sleeping, as a guy, maybe, I mean, I only have one child, and what do you call it? But I wouldn't see anything wrong with what you were saying about him sleeping, because I watch videos now and they'll say, oh, how cute, look at the baby sleeping like this kind of thing. So it's, what was it that, because this is, I'm hoping that people will listen to this and learn.
This part is,
if you can tell,
it's emotional for me, right? Because, okay, one of the major things for me at this point.
Let's stop a second. Do you want to talk about this, or you want to move? I can come with another question.
I can talk about it, but I will give other instances, not this very touchy one.
Okay, no problem.
Because social media will come for me for putting it out there.
Okay, no problem.
So
Alrighty.
I'd rather not say it.
No worries. Just so that, can you explain when you say 6, what a 6 month? Because there's also that thing about, listen, look, we all develop at different stages. So do you have I know it's been 5 years. Do you have a practical example of something that, was a real, yes, okay, now that is something that a 6-3-year-old shouldn't be doing?
At 2 years, it's called the no age. They're always saying no, 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 no. And they like to go on errands. A 2-year-old, if you say go and call your brother, they are running. If you say go and do this, they want to be helpful at that point. At 2 years old, if you were to say my son's name, he would look at you and walk away. He would just look at you and walk away. And at some point, people around me were trying to convince me that my son was deaf. But I knew that my son was not. I knew at that point that my son was not deaf, because he was clearly learning from listening to his cartoons and saying words after them. But he would not speak to you. He would not ask you anything. And if you were to use the toilet, he would look for a space. He would hide and do his business. Okay. So if you don't find it for days, the whole house will be stinky. But at that point already, a child understood then where the toilet was, or at least where their potty should be. Okay. So I knew that something was amiss. And then I started to read. And then there was also the fact that he enjoyed his own space. It was almost like he was in a world of his own. So apart from you giving him food, bathing him, dressing him up, the essential things that he actually needs your help for, he doesn't see you. It's almost like you don't exist. He's just in his world. Okay. So I started to read. Even if a child is not friendly, as people would say, the child will still do things in the house, but he wasn't interested in anything. Okay. He wasn't interested in anything at all. You know how you tell a child that if you don't do this, I will not give you this, and they will do it. If you were to tell my son that if you don't do this, I will not give you this, he will just walk away. Nothing was interesting him. He was not afraid of the dark. Okay. In fact, there's something called the silly laugh. I didn't know about it. And for the longest time.
The silly as in SILLY.
Yeah.
Okay.
He would, at night especially, he would go into the room alone in the dark, and you just hear him laugh. He would laugh hysterically. And I'd be wondering, why is this boy laughing so hard in the dark? And then people tried to convince me that he was seeing a demon, Maybe he had this demon that was playing with him in the dark and all that. But I started to read. I read and read and read, and then I discovered that it's part of, an autism trait. There was also the fact that he was always rocking back and forth. He was always hitting his ears at a loud sound. He would cover his ears. So at that point, I needed to start reading, because at that point, it felt like I was going mad. I was the only one saying that something is wrong, and people kept saying, "You're just a first-time mom that is worrying too much." And I think this is a lesson I would like to share with moms out there. If you feel in your gut that something is not right, worry. Let people call you names. Worry, because you have a right to worry.
Okay.
Worry and research and read and ask questions. People have called me names because I worried too much. But then, these same people said things like, and when you realize, why didn't you take him to the hospital? But when I was worrying, you said I was worrying too much.
Mm.
So, the thing is, there's nothing a mother will do that will ever be enough. So if you have to worry very well until you are sure that there's nothing there.
Okay. You said that, our systems failed. And, would you call it? Yes, I've already complained about the fact that Lagos has dealt with me today, but I think that systems fail globally. Mm-hmm. It happens. Mm-hmm. But we have challenges over here that are not unique, that are the challenges a third world country has. Mm-hmm. As you said, the doctor seeing you with a torchlight at 5 p.m., did he diagnose, or was it simply just a case of?
It was what I had come for already like 3 times in the past. It was, give us your number. We will call you and schedule you for a diagnosis session.
Okay. So if you can break through all the stuff, all that sort of the 20 appointments, cancelled appointments, the 20 long days, there does exist.
Yes.
The diagnosis here. It does exist.
I think especially in government-run hospitals, they have the facilities.
Okay.
But people are so much and the doctors are very little.
Okay.
And so it's almost impossible for you to get a session, or an appointment that actually leads to something if you don't know someone.
Okay. All right.
So it's knowing someone that can say, okay, I know someone that can see you and then fix you in for a particular day.
Okay.
That means they'll be taking someone else off the list for you.
Yeah. The thing that's funny, and I'll use the word haunts me, is what you said about when you first went there, the children you saw. I'm still trying to figure out if I want to be brave enough to ask that question, but we'll see as we go through. But when you then diagnosed it, okay, and you then got this teacher and you got to, and there's a particular reason. Sorry, I must mention that Aisha is actually you work with ease now.
Yes.
I didn't want to introduce you as that because I didn't want it to feel that you were here as a professional. I wanted people to understand that this was a conversation that led to me then finding out that you also that. Yes. So please tell me a bit more about Ease. So
Ease Neurocare actually is an organization. They give us free care here, free consultancy, and they assign a consultant that calls you every month to ask and to take records of yours and your child's progress. So Ease caters to children that have autism, cerebral palsy, every neurological condition you can think of, and learning disabilities. And they also cater to adults who have dementia and learning disabilities. And they do it all for free.
Okay. But it is founded because as I said, we'd spoken before, and it's actually founded by a Nigerian.
Yes.
Yeah. But that he then relocated over there and set it up still there. So does that mean, is that is one of the solutions to that thing of diagnosis?
Yes.
So how does one approach them? How do you, because the systems are failing, you've got an issue, Can you self-diagnose? Do you reach out to ease? How did you find ease?
Okay, so his teacher, she had gone through a training with ease. They also give free trainings to the parents. So ease does not directly cater to the child or to the adults that has the condition. They cater to the primary carer. So for the children, they teach the parents enough that you don't have to spend thousands of naira, employing all these different professionals. You can understand your child's condition. You can apply their trainings to helping your child, and you can also draw up your own plan based on how your child's progress is going. So they give you a plan, or first of all, they do a what's the word? They do a session where they check in with the parent and the child. That day they'll diagnose the child, but that day they'll also diagnose the parent. So they'll see.
Go on, meaning?
So they'll have this one-on-one session with you where they see you, they understand your mindset, they see where you are at, and they know whether you are ready to take up the responsibility of taking care of your child or not. Because we've had parents that think that Ease Neurocare is about money. So they're not actually particular about taking the training and then helping their children. They just want to know if you can give them money.
Or give them money, give the parent money.
Yes.
Okay, so they're looking for a handout.
Yes.
Okay, alrighty.
Meanwhile, what Ease Neurocare is doing is arming you with what you need to help your child have a better life. Because this world is not accepting, it's not as accepting as it should be of people that are different.
You're being very kind. It's not. It's bloody brutal. This place, would you call it? Let alone, it's just as a normal. I hate using that definition as a normal person, let alone a person with a condition or something that people don't understand. I still freak out at the idea that people are telling you that your child was possessed and is seen a demon.
Well, it happens. It happens. So, they help the parent so that they can help the child, or they help the children of the elderly person that has dementia so that they can take care of their parent on their own. Because it's expensive here. To hire a speech therapist here, 200K and above, a physiotherapist, a behavioral therapist, and all these therapists, your child needs them. And so they give you the knowledge you need so that you can apply them on your own. So if Ease sees that the parent is not willing to take up the challenge, they don't work with that family.
Why? Because that's because everybody, because it seems that I still almost that.
There are a lot of people out there that need the services that Ease offers, right? So if every month I call you, you don't have even one positive thing to say about your child, that means you have not been applying the trainings. And if you've been applying them and they've not been working, what stopped you from reaching out to say, oh, we've been doing this and it's not working? Why do you have to wait for me to reach out to you first? If you really want it to work, you will apply it, or you'll find a way. You'll ask questions. Every parent has a different consultant that calls them, that is assigned to them. So you have 24-hour access to that consultant.
I don't know if this exists or whatever, if this kind of statistics exist, but what portion of the populations do they anticipate has autism?
I don't know, really.
Okay.
I've never researched that. I don't know. I can't see.
Okay, all right, okay.
There are people that have an aversion to sound. It's a sensory thing. It's your sensory processing. It's a part of your brain that processes that sensory information that does not want that sound. There are people that have an aversion to touch or taste, very picky eaters. All these are conditions you find in autistic people. It doesn't mean that you're autistic,
Yeah.
but all of us have an autistic trait somehow, or all of us have an impairment. In fact, I believe that a lot of the time, the people we meet have autism or have had it right from childhood, but they did not get the right help. And so they just grew up and they just fit themselves into the society somehow because they had to fit into the society. And there's something called masking. And people with autism are very good at masking their traits. But it doesn't mean that it's not there. So you may know someone that does something that makes you wonder sometimes that is this person all right? And they're always doing it and they're not even aware that they are doing it.
It's interesting because you said something that you talked about people with dementia. My dad had dementia. And it was interesting that it took us a long time to figure it out because he had, when you say about masking, his wasn't autism, I wouldn't say, but it was dementia. And that thing of he masked it. So he would sort of say to you that, that's sort of like, how are you doing? Yeah, how's the family? And it was the standard things that he could gauge your age and there were certain questions I would ask based on that standard stuff. Oh, how's the family? Oh, are the children okay? And if you then went, I don't have children, he goes, oh, don't worry, yeah, I forgot. And our society just wouldn't challenge that. You wouldn't go, hang on, you wouldn't think that, hang on, he hasn't said my name, right? He hasn't asked, if he's asked my children, he hasn't asked about them by name. And this isn't so. Strangers, yes, because he doesn't meant to know them, but I'm your child. And it's only that when you get beyond that and start to look at that and look at the masking and understand those sort of things that you start to understand it. So I can
relate.
I can relate that. I can relate to it.
I think there are more people that are becoming aware of their autistic traits, ADHD traits, and other. In fact, some people are being aware of their narcissistic traits right now, and they're working towards being better people. But with autism, there's a stigma attached to it. Most people that have autism does not stand alone. So my son has autism and ADHD. Some people will have autism and OCD. Some people will have autism and learning disorder. Autism always comes with something. It works with something else. Now, I believe that the children in my class, when I was still little, when I was in primary school, that the teacher will bring out of the class and say, oh, Lodo Rabata, everybody sing for that child. We made their conditions worse because they probably just had autism and learning disorder.
Absolutely.
Or
totally.
they just had one learning disorder that needed help.
Totally. Absolutely.
But because we shamed them, they grew up masking it so well that you now see that they become so successful in one aspect. They just pick one career, focus on it, and be successful at it. A lot of autistic people are very successful. Elon Musk, that's one big example. What's this guy's name? I think it's Tom Cruise, and he has learning disability. He has dyslexia. Now, these guys, they are very smart. Sometimes you find some of them that are very, very smart. Not all of them. That's a misconception people have. People think that anybody that has a social impairment that falls in the spectrum of autism or ADHD or that they're very, very smart. Not all the time, but most of them are very, very smart. And because they are good at masking it, they just become very good at one thing and they become super at it.
This is the problem I knew I was going to have with this conversation because there were a lot of buckets I wanted to touch on. And we've sort of gone through, I haven't even finished talking about just even the diagnosis about, how does, what level, I haven't got to the stage of where what's part of the spectrum your child is on and how do you then balance out. And last time we spoke, the thing that freaked me, and I still remember this, was you said that sometimes he has insomnia.
Yeah.
And that means that you do not sleep. But I suppose that's a good transition into where I want to get to because how do you handle this? How is this being on you?
You cannot force the brain to shut down. And if the brain does not shut down, you cannot sleep. It is the same thing with me saying my son does not know when to stop when he's eating. His brain does not know how to regulate. So my son can wake up 5 a.m., gets ready for school, goes leaves for school at 7 a.m., goes to school, play, come back home, eat, play. We'll go through his assignment. He'll play till it's time for bed. Time for bed, we go into the room. Everybody will say, put off the light, let him sleep in a pitch black room. Put off the light. Okay, use a sensory sound. I use a sensory sound. Use sensory light. I've used sensory light. He still will not sleep, especially when the weather is hot. He will not sleep. And when he doesn't sleep, he wants to play. And when he's playing, everybody will automatically wake up, except my husband, because my husband knows how to get his sleep. I am a light sleeper. So any sound wakes me up. And I also worry a lot. And my husband says I worry too much. So I think one thing I'm grateful for my husband is that during the weekend when he's at home and the kids are awake, he takes them to the living room and locks me in the room so that I can sleep. So he does that for me. And that helps my mental state. Because it's not easy to stay up sometimes 1 week straight.
7 days.
Yes. Sometimes 3 days in a row, you will not sleep. And there's nothing you can do. I started with, when we go into the room, I'll make sure he's lying down and I'll pin him down with my legs. I'll put his legs under my leg and make sure that he's immobile. Because if he's not able to move, he's not able to do anything, he's going to get bored and he'll eventually fall asleep. But that's not a sustainable solution. Because now he's 5 years old. Till how old would I continue doing that?
How has this impacted on you?
I've learned patience. I've learned patience through this whole process because sleep messes with your mind. If you don't get enough sleep, you become angry, agitated even. And so there are days that I will get frustrated and I want to beat him because, maybe if I beat him and he cries, he's going to sleep. But how do you beat someone that does not feel, I don't think he does not feel pain. He just doesn't know how to express pain like other people. So you're beating him and he thinks you're playing with him. So.
But beyond that, because we've talked about it, but even beyond the sleep, how have you coped with your son has a demon? How have you coped with, what would you call it? There would be, without doubt, people who have said this is your fault. There's no doubt about it. Our society is such that, as I said, listen, look, I've got, there's the understanding of if you're an AS or SS, don't marry so and so and so. Mm-hmm. There's going to be all of that in there. How have you coped?
Let me start with my pregnancy. When people started to notice that my son was different. Someone said, you were not wearing pin when you were pregnant. Someone said, this one is even funny. Someone said, this someone that they must have switched to your baby in your stomach. Someone said to my son one day that,
in English, please.
Are you getting smarter or dumber?
Okay.
Someone said to my son once that, why are you giving your mom so much trouble? You are just a wicked boy. Me, people have said, maybe you didn't eat this or maybe you ate this. Okra is good for pregnancy. This and that, you ate this. Why you don't know that people that eat okra, their children will be drawing.
So what did you do wrong?
I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not God. And God does not make mistakes. That's just one thing that I know. See, Tolu, people will come at you with, I think the most hurtful experience for me was one day I went for a meeting. I just had my baby then. And I didn't have a nanny. It's just recently I started to look for nannies to stay with my children. I used to work from home. So every meeting I had, I was taking my children with me. And I went, and this woman, after the meeting, she said, is this how your son goes about and disturbs you. And I said, yes. She said, okay, let me pray. Let's just pray. And she started to cast and bind demons from my son. I remember that day, I prayed to God when I got home, not to go back to that meeting. I needed the money. But I prayed that, God, please, I don't want to see this woman again.
Okay.
Because if she were to cast and bind any demons for my son, I would I would lose it. And I had that experience again recently at the hospital. Someone did the same thing. My son was running around, and this man and his wife, they stopped me. Thank you. They stopped me, and they said, oh, let's pray for your son. And they prayed and they left. But they were kind about it. We went to the hospital for something totally different. And so they saw him, and the pastor said, is this boy not in pain? He's such a little boy. How could he had a boil on his head, And the pastor said, you know what? Let's just pray for him. But he was kind about it. He wasn't casting demons, He wasn't reminding me that I was not a good enough parent because I was not praying enough when I was pregnant, Everything that is happening in the physical has been signed in the spiritual. I know, I'm a believer. But it might be coming from a place of love. I know that it came from a place of love. And I usually say to people that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. You could have prayed for me when I left. You could have put me in your prayers. I would have been fine. I mean, I've had experiences with my son that I don't know if other mothers have gone through the same experiences, but I know that mothers have gone through probably worse. They just haven't had the opportunity I have now to say it, right? And I've also had experiences with needing people, needing to talk, needing to share, because sometimes it puts you in a box. You are lost here in your mind. You feel like maybe I have done something wrong. Maybe I am a bad parent. Maybe I ate this. Maybe I did that. And I remember at this point in my life, I was depressed. I was so depressed that every day I woke up, I felt like maybe I should just go and hit my head on the wall. Because my son is now 4 years old. He doesn't even know I'm his mom. At that point, he didn't know I was his mom. Now he's just getting to understand that I am his mother. Before, he did not understand. And now he will still not miss me if he were to go. The moment someone is nice to him and they take him, I'm sure that he might remember me at the back of his mind, but he will forget me before the end of the day. And that is a big fear. And at that point, I knew that he was totally unaware. And I was just needing comfort. And I was speaking to the wrongest person ever. And every time I spoke to her, I felt worse than I was feeling when I called her. And one day, she said to me that, why do I feel like anytime you call me is to play the pity party? I ended that friendship that day because she had pushed me and pushed me. Every time we speak, she pushed me over the edge without knowing. She would say something that would make me see all my mistakes, that would make me feel like a terrible mother. So that day, I blocked her number. And I told myself that this is not healthy for me. Because already I am going through a lot and I have a baby. And sometimes people don't need you to solve their problem or point out their faults. They just need to hear everything will be fine. And that's all I needed. I mean, this is me. I've grown to the stage that I don't care anymore. I don't care who you are. There are things you will say about my son. I may not respond to you, but I will take my decision. There are people that are close to me, but I will never take my children to their houses to spend a night. Because I know what will come afterwards. I've been there, and I'm not going to expose myself to that again. And I'm not going to expose my son to comparison, for you to now call me and say, is your son not supposed to be doing this now? Or you spoiled your son. Why is he doing this? You'll not be criticizing me and telling me things that I know already, that I'm trying to heal from. or that I'm trying to find ways to help him get through, because no one is taking into consideration that autism is painful for the child. So if you take a child to the mall and the child is covering their ears and the child is shouting and you don't even understand that, it is because the child is not picking up information the way you are picking up. They are picking information times 10. Okay, let me even explain autism in this term. If my son was in this room, every beep coming from these cameras, he can hear it. We can't hear it. The generator sound, he can pick it up clearly. The lights, the tiny insects and the tiny bulbs, he can see them. That's what autism does to the brain. The brain is unable to filter information. So the way we are having this conversation and we're totally blanking the fact that there's a generator blasting somewhere, he can't do that. So he always wants to run away. He just wants to run away. And then you come at the mother with, you have spoiled your child. How will you be letting your child do this or do that? Are you all right? Do you even take into consideration that nobody just wants to get up and run for no reason? And with ADHD, it's the fact that you're trying to concentrate, but you just can't. Your brain is everywhere at once. And for autism, it's not easy, but you can help them manage it in the sense that when they're going out, you can give them headphones that block out sounds and all that, and they'll be fine. But for ADHD, they are fine without the sound, but they may want the sound the next minute, so they are yanking off the headphones. And how do you want to help a child who is dealing with being very cool and calm and understanding that, okay, you do this and this at certain times because you've placed them on a routine that they understand, but yet they cannot stay there because there's another part of their brain that wants to do other things all at the same time. How do you help such a child? And then how do you go and blame the mother of that child for being worried? As I am now, one of my biggest fear, and people say, you're always locking your children in the house. I know why. You're not dealing with it. My son ran into the main road one day when he was 3 years. He ran into the main road. Just 1 second, I needed to pick my key. He ran into the main road. The first thing I heard was screech of tires, cars, bikes, all of them shouting, where is the mother? What kind of useless mother? I said, where are you living? I got home and I cried. I couldn't blame him because he needed to get away from all the noise. And I couldn't blame myself also. I just left him 1 second. Does that make me a bad mother? So I've gotten to that point right now where I don't care. If you want to say she does not bring her son to, please go ahead. If you want to say she cannot even stay one whole night, please say it. But I'm not going to put myself in that situation again.
How do you cope with, or how has this impacted on family and even your marriage or your husband? You said it, how does it,
In the beginning, it was hard, right? Because my family, not just my family, I think it would happen in every family. People would not understand. People would say things. People would suggest things. People would blame you. So for me and my husband, we got to a stage in the beginning where my husband felt like I was just labeling him and I was just scared. And then little by little, he started to see it. But there's something called denial.
Yeah.
You know, first of all, say no. You're just worrying, Jerry. Don't label him. Don't worry. After a while. But then he's growing up and you're seeing that the energy is increasing. The energy is increasing, you know. You want to stay with him at home. I want to leave them in the house. So. And I'm already seeing my husband feeling like, I'm not going to work today. I can see it in his face that he knows that he's not going to work that day. He's going to be stuck taking care of, watching, trying to make sure that he does not put anything in his mouth. So we got to that stage where my husband just knew that we had to tighten our gears, and work together. We got to that stage. And as I said, if he sleeps, and I don't blame him for sleeping because he has to catch his sleep. My husband works on the island. We stay on the mainland. He's going to drive in the morning, 5 a.m. He's already out of the house. Spend traffic in Lagos traffic. Comes back home. He's tired already. And so I can't now force him to stay up with that boy. It would be very inconsiderate of me. I work on the mainland and I live on the mainland. So if he's going to sacrifice his own weekend of rest for me, I should be able to sacrifice my sleep for him. At least there should be that understanding. Even if it's not spoken, it's silent and it's understood. And I don't even ask for him to do it. So I think we've gotten to that level of understanding. In my family, my sisters, they've known my son. One of my cousins learned sign language because she knew that my son was into sign language. There's this Jack Hartman um, kids music channel. So whenever he says or does a video, whatever he's saying in the video, he kind of uses his hands, sign language. And my son learned everything just by looking. And my cousin realized that one day he was trying to spell a word and the letters were not complete. So he used his hands to form the letters in sign language. And my cousin went and learned sign language because of that. And that for me was heartwarming.
It's lovely.
It just shows that my family, they've warmed up to the idea that yes, he's autistic, so what?
Okay.
But I also really, really miss my dad in this aspect also. My dad would have been the best person to cater for my son. He would have been able to teach him on a level that my son would understand. Like I would have paid my dad to homeschool my son, and I know that my son would have been very successful just by being with my dad. My mom would have been the disciplinarian, and that he needs discipline also because he's a boy, he's a child, he's a human being. We all need discipline, right? But my dad, I really miss him in this aspect.
Yeah, I knew this would happen. I mean, we've already run out of time. There's still so much I want to talk to you about. But I don't want us to go away without asking you any advice or tips that you would give to people who are listening. And yeah, the people listening that are going through with kids or whatever it is, what advice would you give?
Okay, so not every child that displays certain things has autism. Don't just say, oh, because this person said her child has autism and they exhibit XYZ trait, that my child has autism. Your child doesn't have to have autism. And that is a problem I see these days. People just label their children. You have to be sure of what you are doing. You have to be sure. You have to know what is happening so that you don't restrict your child. Because to bring up a child that has a neurological disorder is a lot. You have to think of their diet. You have to think of teaching them speech, social skills. Social skills and personal skills also, how to take care of themselves, how to interact with themselves. Now, if you do think that something is wrong with your child, don't let anybody tell you that you're worrying too much or that you are labeling your child. Ask questions. Go to doctors. Research. Worry until you cannot worry anymore. Like worry until you are sure that your worry is not valid. But until you are sure, please validate your worry. Worry until you are sure, because these people that say, oh, you are just worrying for nothing, when they will come at you, you will regret it. And so don't even put yourself in a position where we moms, we can guilt trip ourselves very well. My son was sick recently and I had a bad experience with my nanny. And I ended up blaming myself for even starting work again because I had left him at home with someone that did not actually care for him. And so I sat home. I just stayed home. And I didn't come to work for weeks. Because at that point, I felt like I was a bad mom. But it was not my fault. And it is not your fault if your child is autistic. And really, I think I even need to say this out in the public for men. Your wife does not have a problem if your child has autism. Because no one in your family has autism does not mean that your child has gone to play a rematch. And it does not mean that your wife did something for your child to have autism. In fact, the man's gene is what carries the autism and the ADHD. So stop putting women through this hell of, you went to bring me a child that is not my own and all that kind of talk. It doesn't, the woman is going through a lot already, having to care for a child that has special needs. Whether the child is on the low spectrum or high spectrum or intermediate, it's still hard. So it's better for you to support her so that you can support your child together than for you to leave it to her and have a depressed woman taking care of a child that has special needs. I think in Africa we are strong. We are just strong because we don't have a choice. A lot of the time you hear stories outside the country of the woman killing the child or abandoning the child or, even committing suicide herself. And all this pressure stems from the society not supporting you, family not supporting you, and then the man that is in the house with you also not supporting you and then blaming you for something you had no control over. I don't think that's right.
Thank you. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna say pause because I want to have I'm gonna try and find a way to have this conversation again because there's still little bits of it. Not little bits, lots of bits that I think that we could learn from. Lots of stuff but our attention span is not more than an hour, and we've already sort of gone past that. So I said it at the beginning, and I repeat it again. Thank you. I know how vulnerable it is to put that kind of information about your experiences out there. And I know how exposing it is. So I really value it. I really appreciate it. And I hope that the people who have listened have found value and really helpful. I think that's why I wanted to do this, because I think there's so many people going through it. I know that I've experienced with members of family. I mentioned my dad with dementia. I've had people who have dyspraxia that my parents didn't understand. Mm-hmm. And that's all stuff that you learn and stuff and you do. So thank you, Aisha. Guys, thank you for listening. I know it's been a long one, but I hope it's been useful. There'll be the usual subscribe and stuff. And please, if there's any support groups or the email address, the website address for ease, please let's have it so we can put it up and everything like that and put it up there. But I want to round it off I want to end off with this statement. And when I asked Aisha to send me her bio, she said this thing, and I think it really is a good way to end. And she went, okay, she's a mother of 2 boys. She's Muslim, loves to read and write, and believes strongly in being good to people, regardless of what you are going through. I think that's so key. Be good. Just go out and be good to people. Okay? Just take that. Alrighty. Thank you.